Hello, hello. I am Mayor Watt. I'm the mayor of ohmTown. That's that site. I'm the host of ohmTown Daily News Show. And what is it all about? It is news aggregation. I grab about 20 headlines, talk about them. The headlines all get categorized into 6 main categories. Those are the ones across the top here. And if you're in the podcast, it's create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. And in those main categories, there are about 50 channels where all the news gets funneled down into. That's how I start out each of the shows. Because it is also a podcast, I don't edit anything. There might be some dead air, I guess, as I'm moving from one thing to another. But I go over the news that's aggregated over at ohmTown.com. Typically, it's every 24 hours, and that's why this is a daily news show. That said, let's get into this really quick. As mayor, I am hopping from duty to duty, so to speak. And I've got meetings after this particular show. So it's kind of becoming steady state that for an hour between 11 and 12 each day, I do this show and immediately run off. So I wish I could stay longer, but it's really up to everybody else coming over to twitch.tv/ohmTown. Or watching over on YouTube and following there, or downloading the podcast. Somewhere along the lines, I would like to expand my hours of operation. I might end up doing this for an hour each day and then having a nighttime stream for several hours, as well as the weekends. So it's all worth your while, I guess. Hopefully you find this interesting and entertaining enough to continue to download and tell some people about it. That whole word getting out thing makes a huge difference, and feedback is just as important. Well, anyway, let's get into it. Right off the bat, today has been really interesting. The last 24 hours has been really interesting in the socio-political schema of things, because the very first article is going to just come straight out and drop a politically motivated, socially driven, I guess you could say, policy change. Now, to me, this screams ideological difference, and a small order of people are making all of this change possible if it actually is made manifest. There's another article later on that gets to another issue that I have with this. But in this particular case, it says Roe v. Wade set to be overturned by Supreme Court striking down abortion rights, according to leaked draft opinion. So it has been, some would call, settled law precedent. The status quo since 1973, that it is up to the woman having to bear a child, making the determination if they want to do that. Yet we have some rather, in my opinion, barbaric and controlling mechanisms in place where a woman loses that right. Now, we are sentient beings. We have the right to self-determination. Yet, this particular law is deciding that it's up to the states, and the states will make that determination of what a person can do. Well, here's the issue with this. If a state determines it, and the state is controlled by a select few through oppression, historical processes that have kept the same either family lines or ideology in place, then you have what amounts to an echo chamber within the state, and the state will do whatever those particular people say. And we end up trending towards a theocratic fascist plutocracy where the rich are dictating certain things, ideological bents that are founded in religion are deciding the rest, and combined you have a micro dictatorship, authoritarian regime saying that this happens or that happens. Whereas the current state of things that have been trending up until the last, I'd say 10 years, if that 10 years, I'd say probably less than that, 5 years, has been fighting for more inclusion, equity, equality. It's about expanding our arms together as a society and not trying to marginalize people based on sexual orientation, gender, racial bias, etc., etc. So many things where us humans decide that we are going to put up a barrier and gatekeep somebody else instead of focusing on knowledge, skills, and abilities and how we treat each other socially. And it's a real shame that this is actually going to happen because this was done almost in a power vacuum, and every accusation has seemed to be a confession in terms of what is being done in society lately by the loud few. To me, I've been watching this happen and speaking in my own way about this. It's all about education. It's all about awareness. And I can never dictate to somebody else what they do with their body. I can recommend, but you are a human being and you are an autonomous human being. I do not own you. I would never think to. But this kind of thing is literally, and I say that in the generally accepted term of saying literally, right? It's happening. It's going to happen. It is existing here that there was a leaked draft opinion, and it's going to happen. So this is an article over at variety.com written by J. Kim Murphy. And depending on the state you're in, it is going to trigger certain policies and procedures in that state that are regularly, historically bound to old school mentality, old school thinking about basically controlling people. And the way that it has happened historically is, if you are connected, you can still get an abortion. If you are rich, you can still get an abortion. But if you are poor or you are not connected, it either gets leaked out and you become a pariah in the community, or you just can't afford it and you take great risk. And in that great risk, there is a greater number of people that are harmed or die in the process of getting an abortion. So my problem here is that it is being touted by people who want to give, who don't want their rights taken away, yet they are taking rights away. And it shouldn't be up to somebody else to dictate what I do with my body. And that extends to many, many other things, yet in the world that I exist in, I am more inclusive of people, and I don't throw up barriers. I actually hate barriers, and I hate backroom deals, and I hate the idea of somebody making an agreement in the shadows of various corridors and deciding society's fate. But there's a whole lot more to this. So you can go over and read in various places right now about this potential change. And again, there's another article later on, but I'm going to soften this as we go across the articles, because I do have about 20 of them. But it says, in the 98-page draft opinion, Justice Alito writes that Roe v. Wade, quote, was egregiously wrong from the start, and calls the reasoning behind the ruling exceptionally weak, and the decision has had damaging consequences. The document also renounces the 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, which maintained rights established by Roe v. Wade. This has been, by society's demand, the lay of the land. And now it's being tweaked. And it's because the makeup of the Supreme Court was forced into its current state. You know, somebody who cries and screams, "I like beer," shouldn't have been made a Supreme Court justice. But apparently, even making that claim or leaking this says now that you are subverting the Supreme Court. And we'll get to that here in a minute. So what do you think about that? Feel free to write it in chat, contact me via various places, YouTube, Twitter, Discord. There's an ohmTown Discord channel. You can get there. Anyway, let's move on. We'll have to watch this as it gets confirmed. I haven't been paying attention to the news for the last couple of hours. I've been in meetings or working on things. So, again, it's busy being mayor. The next article is in Smack Talk. Foxconn starts early recruitment drive for a major iPhone facility. Foxconn has started a push for workers in manufacturing plants in Zhengzhou, China, typically known for iPhone production weeks ahead of the usual seasonal schedule. The main production base for iPhone assembly, Foxconn's Zhengzhou, I think it's Zhengzhou, factory, commenced a major recruitment drive in May, bolstering its workforce. As part of the effort, it is offering a bigger bonus, increasing the value to 30% to workers signing up for the manufacturer. Let's click the link. It takes us over to Apple Insider, an article written by Malcolm Owen. And Foxconn is just a juggernaut in the manufacturing industry for Apple. And let's see what else. The hiring is unusual as it's considered the off-season for hiring workers. Well, it may not be anymore as supplies present itself and they are acquired and isolated from the rest of the market. If you have to convert faster on making the items, you don't want anything that isn't actively being utilized. If it's just sitting in a warehouse, it's costing money to just sit there. So I'm not surprised that Apple and Foxconn and many other manufacturers that have their, I guess, radar actually paying attention to what's going on in the world, they're going to want to produce and start getting things sold as soon as possible. And prepping. I wouldn't be surprised if things are ready for the next iteration of the iPhone is ready for the market the moment that it's announced. Not weeks afterward, but it's going to be ready. Even if the number is constrained due to the timing, at least some will be ready to start recovering that money because inflation is going to continue. And by September, I'd say. And maybe nowadays I'm starting, just a few weeks ago, I was saying that it would probably peak somewhere around September, but it could continue higher. It really depends on what goes on. We'll see. We will see. We'll have to keep watching, and then we can talk about it here at ohmTown. And we will. But let's continue on. The next article is over in Warcrafters. Type-C cables capable of charging an RTX 3080 Ti gaming laptop are here. Yes, it is Thai, I was told, and I heard from NVIDIA that the TI that I always called it is actually Thai. I don't know why, but that's what they said. It was some presentation from NVIDIA that said that it's called Thai. Supercharged USB Type-C cables capable of delivering 240 watts of power are beginning to show up. If I plug something into that and it isn't moderated by something, that voltage control would probably explode. So that's one of the reasons why their Apple cables have the ability to communicate with the ports on either side so that voltage is regulated. So it can power an RTX 3080 Ti powered gaming laptop. That is spectacular amount of voltage through. Well, obviously it really matters. You can have a Type-C connector, but the cabling is different. So to send 240 watts through it when what I have typically around here is somewhere around 60 it's pretty spectacular. And many of mine are only pushing 5 watts, so just enough to give juice to some device. So pretty neat. Let's go over to PCGamer.com. That's where this article is sourced from, and the author is Jacob Ridley. So be sure to go over to PC Gamer. It says 1 cable, 240 watts of power. More power. Club 3D hasn't announced specific prices yet for its cables, but those should be announced sooner or later. The author says, I'd also expect a wave of new cables with support for the new power standard to follow. Yeah, I agree. Let me pause this. Yes, I love this. Keep pushing the limit. Make it so that I can have 1 cable and things can be daisy chained if I need, or I can power a major power distribution device, giving 240 watts of total power to whatever. Because right now, I've got USB hubs, but they're only limited in their power. And if you put too many devices on it that pull a lot of power from a hub, it can shut down the hub and everything disconnects. Blah. That has happened to me. It has happened with one of my hubs that's sitting right there. And but I think that it's a knockoff now that I started looking into it. After the first drop in power, I started looking into it, and there's some indicators that my hub is a fraud. I just haven't pursued it because it's been so long since I purchased it. But I'll have to replace it. That's kind of inside baseball, so I'm not sure why I told everybody, but there it is. That said, let's continue on. I'll be excited to have more powerful cables and more power distribution ahead of me. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel. It is related in some way to business technology or society. And that is really the focus of Hatch Ideas with the business transformation angle. It's a more holistic channel that I hopefully will be bringing shortly to Twitch on the weekends here at ohmTown. The article's title is a UN official says millions of tons of grain are blocked at Ukraine's port due to Russia's invasion, according to report. And other reports have basically said that Russian troops are looting. And so anything like this, and they're doing other kind of rather despicable things like leaving supplies, but they are improvised explosive devices under them. They're basically making traps. But anyway, all of this, it's too risky to bring the material out into Ukraine, but Ukraine citizens need the food. There's a report that I think I used in here, but we'll just go through the news and we'll see if it makes any sense at the end of the day. This article is over at Business Insider, and it's from Aruba Jamal, and millions of tons of grain are stuck in Ukraine as the ongoing conflict with Russia prevents safe transit from the country's ports. A UN official warned. Currently, almost 4.5 million tons of grain are stuck in Ukrainian ports on ships and cannot be used, and it's gonna spoil. It needs to be shipped out, and other food needs to be shipped in. The way that countries tend to work is they aren't entirely self-sufficient, unless they have been historically self-sufficient. They tend to focus on what they are strategically positioned to maximize the benefit from. So some countries need other products and services imported into the country as they focus on what they're good at. Here, grain is trying to get shipped out, and other things are trying to be delivered, and it can't be effectively because you never know when some Russian ship is going to either stop you and take everything, or just sink you if you try and fight. So it says prices of the commodity surged in the wake of the Russian invasion as conflict curtails production and export of the grains, with blocked shipping routes proving a major obstacle. And that's pretty typical of any conflict wherein a port or a border is involved. For whatever, although I can think like this, I try not to. I'm not in the position where it is important for me to think like this, so I try not to actively do it. But you end up, the goal is to prevent any infiltration or exfiltration of information, of resources, of support, and that's what's happening in Ukraine, and it to me it's rather despicable. And depending on the nature of it, don't get me wrong, I feel the same way about other situations. So not just Russia invading a country. But it's the 21st century. I don't think anybody should be invading countries. I think that we should all be working together to maximize the benefit of each country for itself and for each other. Plain and simple. That's where we're at. So this next article is 4 reasons to press pause on social audio. I've seen other things talking about the social audio. The excitement over social audio is palpable, judging by the number of companies building out apps like Clubhouse or features to support it. However, marketers should be aware of potential drawbacks of entering social audio right now. This is an article over at Business Insider. It's written by Deborah Aho Williamson. It might be Aho. I'm not quite sure. But the excitement over social audio is palpable, huh? So let's see. For all its growth in recent months, Clubhouse had just 12.2 million downloads worldwide through March 9th, 2021 per App Annie. By the way, there is a social audio streaming service by Amazon called Ohm. And I think it's really interesting. Ohm is the currency that's at ohmTown. And ohmTown, I have owned the domain ohmTown and have been operating ohmTown for quite some time. And it always wounds me a little bit when I when I hear something get close, because it's happened historically too, where I brush up against major players that suddenly pop up when I start a project. Not saying that suddenly, everybody is doing what I'm doing. I'm just saying that when I start something, it tends to be something that is a problem looking for a solution, not a solution looking for a problem. So let's go on to the next article. That next article is in the Continuity Report channel. And Paramount Plus, Showtime top 62 million combined subscribers. Paramount Plus and Showtime topped a combined 63 million subscribers at the end of the first quarter, Paramount Global revealed Tuesday. From that new total, 6.8 million are Paramount Plus sub additions from Q1. Whoa, hello everybody. Hey, welcome to ohmTown. Thank you for stopping by. I'm about 30 minutes into an hour-long stream, and I am very happy to see you all. Be sure to follow. Let me know that, stick around. The way that this works is my news aggregator, which is that right there, ohmTown.com. I need to work on my graphics, apparently. Thank you very much for following. I appreciate it. The aggregator reaches out and grabs news from hundreds of sources. Hello, Dunkster. Hello, Sim. Should I even say this? Hello, Barrett. Not Barrett. I'm trying to riff off of Duncan. Timeless. It's awesome to see y'all. Really appreciate it. And you have a good night. Thanks for rating. Woo! I need to work on my stuff so that I can throw more things and make it a little bit more entertaining when a raid comes in. Luckily, I don't have what Timeless has, which is I don't have bits where you can just throw some bits out there and there's this horrible scream. Okay, so if you've never been to ohmTown, ohmTown is a news aggregator, and it gathers up the news from around the world. 200 plus sources get funneled into 6 categories, and if everybody has been here before, just tell me to shush, and I will continue on with the news. I do an hour-long show. Sometimes it runs long. But all of this news gets funneled into 6 categories: create, news, education, entertainment, social, and technology. From there, it gets funneled into about 50 channels, each of which I intend to bring to Twitch as weekly shows, with at least one show, the daily news show, running every day. Right now it's at 11 a.m. It has been at 11 p.m. Anyway, I'm trying to find a good home where everybody kind of digs what's going on. So with that in mind, we're about halfway through the news show so far. And there are about 250 plus thousand articles over in ohmTown because I use it in my daily life, in my professional life, every day. And typically throughout the day, it's a constant news feed, so always something coming on. Right now, I'm just talking about Paramount Plus and the number of subscribers. It's up from a combined 56 million to 62 million of subscribers. And the context of this, the reason why I do this, is because there's information overload. And so I gather stuff up that I think is interesting. I click on the link, it takes me over to the source, and I say this is from variety.com, and the author is Jennifer Moss. And I encourage you to go over to that source. So, and I do that by providing the link, the linky. I try not to get too into politics. Sometimes I soapbox because I have experience in the particular domain or knowledge in that particular domain. And it can come out as I make it clear what my personal opinion is in the matter, and I encourage discussion, even when it's counter to what you want to hear or see. I like to challenge preconceived notions about what is going on in the world. So my focus is merging business, technology, and sociology together, or society, I should say. So we have been switching over from broadcast television, where it was free, but we had to consume ads, over to apps, where it's costing us money, but we're losing the ads. That's good and bad in that it's now costing us directly more money. 30 plus years ago, we joked about this in the sector of IT and online services, that it would never happen. We were not going to have to pay more to consume something like a particular channel. And there actually, if you do a search, you may be able to find these really old GIFs where people have put together that if you wanted to do something with a social network, you would have to pay $5 more to your internet service provider. And while that directly didn't become manifest, what really happened was every single provider spun up an app, and now you have to pay that particular provider for whatever you want. So you used to be able to just subscribe to Showtime, and boom, you had Showtime. Well, now you have to subscribe to your internet service provider, and you have to subscribe to an app for your TV, and you have to subscribe to another app for Showtime or HBO or something else. Right now, I'm subscribing to 2 apps that are UK bound, just so that I can consume things that are the licensing is broken off in tranches. So for 6 episodes, I had to subscribe to a different app just so I could get those 6 episodes, and then I had to subscribe back to the other app so that I could get the rest of the series. And that's all this licensing that everybody now is having to worry about when they subscribe to a service. So Netflix every month is losing and gaining something. Hulu is doing the same thing. Paramount Plus is focusing on its vertical. And we are being, as consumers, we are being kind of death by 1,000 cuts. And inflationary times means that those fees per month are going to go up, as well as everything else going up. So again, death by 1,000 cuts. So go over to Variety and you can read more about this particular article. But I'm going to continue on with the rest of the news. The next article is in the Smack Talk channel, which is focusing on Apple. And Apple employees are disgruntled over return to working in offices. And I have no problem with this. You should be disgruntled as an employee. If you've been doing distance work for 2.5 years, you might as well continue to do that. I no longer have to spend 2 hours in traffic to get to and from my office, and I'm more effective and efficient. Obviously, it all relates to the fact that if you have to do hands-on, naturally, you're going to have to be on site. Although I can send products that my company makes to somebody and they can build it in their living room or their garage or wherever they want to, and then ship it out from there. And it's akin to sending it to an office or a warehouse. And if you can do that kind of thing, then I would say facilitate that. It helps with the work-life balance in that nobody has to travel just to get to some location. And when you are doing software engineering or even electrical engineering and everything is done electronically, right? It's done inside a development environment, or it's done basically just on a computer. Why return to the office? It says, after being warned in March about a return to working in Apple Park on April 11th, corporate staffers began spending some of their week within Apple offices. While Apple is keen on gradually returning to full-time office work, there is seemingly some resistance from those who work for the company. It's an anonymous survey. In the week ending April 19th, claims 56% of workers were actively looking for employment elsewhere. Yeah, that may not actually solely be based on having to return to work. So the story comes from Apple Insider, and it's written by Malcolm Owen. And that's a fabulous campus. I mean, I think it's an amazing campus. But still, traffic in and out of there is a nightmare. But you're getting paid some pretty big bucks, and they provide so much on that campus that you don't need to leave. That's one of the objectives of, I guess, what amounts to Silicon Valley type companies. When you're really big and you're paying people well, the value added there is that you provide everything from gyms, food, entertainment, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of services on the campus, and you never leave. Um, when I first started my business, and I was going from client to client, um, basically what I do is strategic management consulting, and so I would be brought into a company and I would find where they are weak and direct them how to maximize, what they have to offer. And one of the many things has always been minimize the need for somebody to leave. And if they are happy at work, then that's a good thing, because then they don't think that work is work. And it's largely this value added services. And you'd be surprised. I was very happy doing 100-hour work weeks as a consultant, because I enjoyed the work. That said, nowadays you can do everything remote. Gone are the times where you have to show up. You lose the networking opportunities, but nowadays networking is more than just face-to-face. So Sim, you said around 60% of the staff where I work want to continue working from home full-time. Yeah, I think we'll go forward with hybrid working. Yeah. And that actually, the trend really is towards hybrid work, where you show up maybe twice a week, and you get to, it's flex scheduling, and you can, depending on who your boss is, you can start and stop when you want to and take breaks in between. The amount of happiness that is garnered in having a well-founded work-life balance is phenomenal. But for whatever reason, there are some, I'll just say, old school mentalities in the employee-employer relationship, where they say you have to come, put butt in seat. That's the only way that we can exist. And it's not true. If you do work on a computer in an office, then you can do it from anywhere without any concerns about security issues. It actually increases security. So here is a follow-on article that stems from the previous one. The very first article that I spoke about was that Roe v. Wade is being overturned. It's seemingly being overturned. It hasn't been announced yet, but I haven't looked at the news in the last 2 hours. I was in a meeting, and then I am doing the show, and I have a meeting right after this. But that said, right out of the gate, Fox News' Laura Ingraham calls for FBI to search for the Roe v. Wade leaker. There was a whistleblower, basically, that gave this 89-page document to the public that suggests that the Supreme Court is going to flip Roe v. Wade. And my angle of this is I despise things being done in a vacuum, behind closed doors, in the dark. My phrase is abuse happens in the dark. A whistleblower is shining a light. And I think that that's actually a good thing, particularly when it's involving society as a whole. And so the earlier that this came out, the better for society, even if it continues to be manifest and Roe v. Wade is overturned. The fact that it was all done behind closed doors in shadowy halls really smacks of abuse of the social discourse. Everybody that has a stake in this should have been able to discuss this publicly in town halls around the country. That did not take place. This was a vote, and everything was written, and now we're going to, I guess, reap the rewards of this action. It's quite interesting that this is being seen as a leaker and not a benefit to society. Everybody should know about this well before it actually takes place, because it's putting a different set of controls on society here in the States. Obviously, wherever you are, it's not going to impact you if you're not in the United States. But let's go over to the source. This is a Business Insider article written by Tom Porter. And my problem with this, beyond the fact that it's trying to lay blame on a whistleblower, trying to prevent abuse of the system, depending on which side of the fence you're on, one person's freedom fighter is another person's terrorist, and it really depends on which side of the fence you're on. My real problem with this is that the people that are going to lose the most are the people that aren't politically connected, that can hide having an abortion, or those that can't afford an abortion. But the rich are politically connected, and they have the means to basically hide the fact that they're going to continue to get abortions. But the poor cannot, everyday Joes cannot. And they are the ones that can't afford to have unwanted, or I guess, well, they can't follow through with the pregnancy, or it stems from abuse of some way. And it's basically directing everybody that they can't do what they want with their body. Yet at the same time, these same people are saying, you can't tell me to wear a mask. You can't tell me to get vaccinated. Well, now you're actually telling everybody that they can't have control over their body, regardless of what it is. It's just somebody else's brand of directive, except that one side is trying to be inclusive of everybody, and the other one is throwing up barriers, gatekeeping, saying what you can't do, versus the other side that is saying, look, we want everybody to have a voice, not just a select few. So there's a lot more to this that's coming. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't like coming into a stream and talking about politics and talking about things that are serious. But this is affecting you. Like it or not, this is coming, and either you or your kids or your kids' kids in the future will be impacted by what society does. I love Twitch for what it is. And an hour of time talking about the news can change your worldview. And we can talk about it here at ohmTown on Twitch. So stick around. We have more articles. Not all of them are like that. And feel free to throw something in chat. I appreciate comments. I appreciate perspective. Context matters, and everybody has a voice. So feel free to throw it in chat, and we can talk about it. This is in the Hatch Ideas channel. Facebook is giving up on podcasts after just 1 year. Podcasts are kind of interesting, because the podcast actually stems from within the creator. So if I spin up a website, it has an RSS feed. Guess what it is? It's a podcast. If it has audio and or video, it straight up is a podcast. So, and that's what this turns into. At the end of every show, I run a script that turns it into an audio file and a video file. I upload it to YouTube. I upload it to my podcast repository, and you can download it from anywhere. It's over on Apple, it's on Google, it's on Spotify, and it's on others. But it's as easy as that. So there's no competitive advantage for Facebook to focus millions of dollars on spinning up a platform, because it's really, all of the storage is my burden as a creator. Apple doesn't hold anything. Spotify doesn't hold anything. Google doesn't hold anything. It's all stored on another server. So Facebook is going to start focusing its ambition on Meta, and virtual reality, augmented reality, and continuing its ad development. So this is just a strategic move to focus. This article is over on Business Insider if you want to know more about it, and it's written by Isabel Asher Hamilton. And let's see if there's anything interesting in here. Just so you know, I don't read the articles prior. I just have experience in the field. And so I give it my particular perspective, and there might be minutia in here. And see, it says it right here. So again, just to qualify this, I've never read this article. I just know, I guess I could say I tend to know what business is going to be doing. Facebook became a subsidiary of its parent company, Meta, following a rebrand. It's exactly what Google did with Alphabet, and is trying to stay relevant while its parent company turns its focus towards the metaverse. So this is all about minimizing waste and risk and extending the runway. Not that Facebook is really hurting for money. Multi-billion-dollar corporation has a lot of runway to burn through before it turns eventually into AOL, which that is the nature of things. There's going to be some evolutionary step in online social presence, and Facebook will continue to die off as people become more sophisticated and they don't care about being all on one massive platform. It is inevitable. So the next article is related to U.S. mortgage rates. Federal Reserve is trying to tame inflation, so they're raising interest rates. My prediction is that we're going to probably head towards the 11-12% interest rate by the end of September. That is my prediction. Let's click the link so that we can just get to the source. This is a Business Insider, and it says today's mortgage rates and refinance rates, May 3rd. And there you go. We are over the 5% mark, which last year we were closer to the 2.5-3%. And so if you did not get a chance to refi or purchase a house, you will be paying twice as much in interest, which is a massive burden. And I think that it'll continue. It really depends on the machinations of the Federal Reserve. And based on what I've been reading and my analysis, it's largely driven by very wealthy investors and oil and gas companies driving this. So we will see. Again, it's always a spectrum of monitoring, and at the end of the day, or I should say at the end of each year, we basically get to look back and go, who was right and what really happened. There's very few leading indicators about what's going to happen. One of which, if you are curious, is oil and gas prices. As they increase, it's a fundamental leading indicator of what's coming, and gas prices are increasing. Even while gas companies have massive profits, gas prices are increasing. So they're keeping their margins and basically pricing out people that can't afford to bear the burden of $5 gas or more. That said, this article is over at Business Insider, and it's written by Molly Grace and Laura Grace Tarpley. I wonder if they're related. Okay, so we have a couple more articles, and if you have questions or comments, feel free to throw them in chat. The next article is over in the Hatch Ideas channel, and why revelations in political books don't become public sooner. This has to do with the fact that there are always these bombshells in a book that don't come out until the book is published, and then everybody goes ooh and ah. It drives sales. Socially, everybody loves a train wreck. It's better if it's a busload of kittens crashing into a warehouse that's an inferno of dumpster fires. People just love watching the train wreck and as slow as possible. So I'm not surprised when bombshells are in books, because they're not really. It's a means to an end for somebody to profiteer off of the conflict that was in existence at the time. It is a sociological mechanism. This is an article over at Business Insider, and it's written by Jake LaHoot. And they go into why this takes place. So let's see. That's what makes a good book. And the carping you see on Twitter over revelations and why did they wait? It's inevitable. Urban continued. And at the end of the day, it has no impact on sales. I doubt it. I'd have to do more digging into this, but when bombshells are made, people buy books. Without a doubt, that is exactly what happens, because you can see how hype leads to purchasing more books. And that's really what it's all about. It says the duo generated headlines and copious cable news coverage over audio recordings they obtained showing Republican House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy sharing plans to demand his resignation. Any type of hype becomes marketing mechanisms, and so it comes out after the fact, and nobody wants to harm their position within an organization simply to reveal something. And that's why whistleblowers need protection, because the moment that you say something from within an organizational body and it is counter to what people want to hear, you'll be fired. And that's why whistleblowers exist. That's why this thing about Roe v. Wade came out in the manner it did, because things get abuse happens in the dark. So let's continue on. I won't focus on that too much. This is another Hatch Ideas aggregated location from CNBC. BP, British Petroleum, reports bumper first quarter net profits, but post massive loss on hit from Russia exit. If you don't know about this, anybody who was in Russia at the time of the invasion and then decided that they weren't going to do business, they had to abandon everything because it was nationalized. It was pulled in, and there's an embargo on returning 10 years. I don't know if that will persist for 10 years, but basically all of the assets are now owned by Russia if you didn't exfiltrate them in some way. And large capital improvements, you're not going to exfiltrate on a bus somewhere. So BP announced a further $2.5 billion in share buybacks as it reported its highest first quarter profit in more than a decade. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. Well, we're at the end now of a pandemic. We have rising inflation, gas prices, food, everything is going through the roof. And you have exactly what I said earlier, which was record profits, increased costs, and increased prices to the consumers. So you know where it's all landing. It's landing on the consumer, and the executives and main stakeholders are keeping their margins high enough and not softening the blow in any way, shape, or form. And my conflict with that is that it's profiteering. A lot of it is being blamed on Russia. But if it is the Russian invasion that's causing the prices to go up for raw materials, then sure, transfer that cost over to the consumer, but profits should be taking a hit too. Your company is part of a society, and short-term gains means that there's long-term cuts to the rest of society. You'll always be able to make more gas. You'll always be able to sell it. But they're pushing the concept of elasticity of demand. People will continue to go and buy gas until they just can't. And the prices are going to continue to go up. So you just can't. Most businesses absorb some of these increases, but they have record profits during a pandemic during inflation, heading towards recession. And the rest of society is paying the price. So this is an article over at cnbc.com. Sam Meredith is the author. And you can learn more about this. But even on a massive loss by bowing out of Russia, they still had record profits. And you can bet that they didn't pay any taxes because of such great losses. Just, it's a byproduct. It's a benefit, really. You and I can't really do that, but corporations can. We can do a degree, but let's face it, we're not multi-billion-dollar corporations. The next article is over in the Daily News Show. That's this show. It just happens to be a channel at ohmTown as well. Rocket Lab grabs booster falling from space with a helicopter. The company aims to join Elon Musk's SpaceX in reusing rocket boosters, which can lower costs and increase the frequency of launching to orbit. Click this entirely because of that title. So this is a New York Times article written by Kenneth Chang, and I'll pause this if I can. It doesn't look like I can. I don't typically play the audio or video from websites that I'm aggregating, but it says here, on Tuesday, Rocket Lab, a small company with a small rocket, pulled off the first half of that feat during its latest launch from the east coast of New Zealand. After sending a payload of 34 small satellites to orbit, the company used a helicopter to catch the 39-foot-long used-up booster stage of the rocket before it splashed into the Pacific Ocean. I'll have to end up watching this on my own. Again, I do this out of respect for the news source. I want you to go over to the source and watch it. They get credit where credit is due. And I just aggregate a small snippet, and I don't even show the full article on my stream. But if the pilots were unhappy at any point, that's what they were instructed to do, bow out. Then the stage continued under parachute at a low descent rate and splashed down in the ocean. But they actually caught it. Wow. Sorry, to me, it's an amazing feat to catch a falling rocket with a helicopter before it does splashdown. Depending on the velocity of the splashdown, water acts like concrete. And so if it hits hard enough, it can do damage to the rocket itself, the stage that actually hits the surface. And that can raise the costs. But if they can catch it at a rate that isn't damaging to the... Wow. I'm watching it, so might as well just watch it. That's pretty amazing. So yeah, they just tethered onto it. And there you go. Cool. That's amazing. Okay, so let's continue on. If there's any questions, just throw them in chat. Happy to talk about it. And if you haven't yet, please follow. I'm trying to get that number to 100%. We're just shy of it. And I've only been doing this for 123 episodes now. Yeah. And I'd love to see that number hit 100. That would be great. In the mobile channel, the Amazon union loses vote at second Staten Island warehouse. The results were a setback for the upstart Amazon labor union, which won a landmark victory last month at a larger Amazon warehouse nearby. So let's click this link. There were some problems that people were calling out. The simple fact that people were handing out joints at one of the other union vote locations, and I'd have to go and hunt to find out which one it was. But yeah, there was some discussion regarding this, if the vote was actually valid. I don't think that this is the same thing, but it says the results were a setback for the upstart Amazon labor union, which won a landmark victory at a larger Amazon warehouse nearby. And it's kind of a bummer that one location manifests as a union and the other one does not, because it kind of emboldens the idea that not everybody is necessarily interested in unionizing. But in today's day and age, um, salaries and benefits are stagnating or declining in order of the cost of living increases, not even to mention inflation. And so individual employees don't have any bargaining power unless they are a subject matter expert in something and they can actually leverage that expertise and just go somewhere else. And so employees have to make sacrifices. They either swallow their pride and work for somebody and have food on the table for their family, or they don't, and they have to compete against other people. And depending on the type of job, there is a massive amount of competition. And so an employer can simply say, yeah, I don't care about your demands. I'm going to pay you, 50 cents below minimum wage, and you'll still have to work for me. I've had companies say things like that to me as a consultant. I've got plenty of people that are looking for a job. And to me, although the objective of me is to make the company better, I have an ethical and moral dilemma here, because I think that everybody should be treated with respect as a human being and not just a cog in the wheel, cog in the gears. Making the business operate is it's founded on the employees. It's founded on the people that are working. And so I think that they should be paid more. And the C-suite should be paid less because they are benefiting longer term. Employees will go somewhere else. They'll seek better opportunity elsewhere. But the C-suite of a business is benefiting simply from the daily operation of the business. But sometimes the directive from those that I'm consulting with is they want to put that aside and they want pure profit for themselves. And that's where the formation of a union comes into play, because abuse happens and then employees either say this isn't right and they fight, or they leave. And it's very rare that a business collapses because employees leave, because everybody wants a job. Everybody needs food on the table. This particular article is over at the New York Times, and it's written by Karen Weiss. Is it Naomi, Schreiber, and Coral Murphy Marcos. So you can read more over at the article. The link is in the chat and the show notes. This next article is over in Warcrafters, and it says portable gaming in 2022 is huge, especially in the PC gaming space with hits like the Steam Deck. And the Steam Deck dock has been modified as well. If you didn't listen to a previous stream, the Steam dock has actually changed, and I think it's using USB-C now and a few other changes, but it hasn't actually started getting sent out yet. Anyway, this article is about XR glasses. These XR glasses could be the answer to portable gaming woes. Tiny portable gaming is convenient, but it's also kind of tiny. And when it comes to screens, they're not always enough for full immersive experience. So you end up with these kind of glasses, which basically put a massive screen on your head, even though they are really just screens really close up. It's one of those things where people find it neat, but not necessarily what they want. They want that big old screen on the wall, and they want to be able to sit 12 feet away from it. But it's identical, mostly, to wearing glasses with a small screen close up. It's pretty neat. As long as the screen is high resolution enough and you don't see pixels, you're good to go. So let's click this link. It says the glasses can be connected to a device via a cable and also support 5G and Wi-Fi connections. It's also got boasting rights on being the first Android TV licensed wearable and is preloaded with both video and game streaming. Let's click this link. It takes us over to PC Gamer. Hope Corrigan is the author, and they say, and it looks like they work really well on the couch too. So what do you think? So it's currently a Kickstarter, and they say it looks fairly promising. The Viture 1, Viture 1. So do you think that you'll go and get that? Should I click on this link? I don't normally click on the links that are inside it. I want you to go and do that. So they had a $20,000 goal, and they're at 1.4 million, 1.35, but who's counting? PS, Xbox, PC Remote Play, Switch, and Steam Deck support. Pretty neat. Let's see, how much is the very first? So they're saying that it's only $400, but the MSRP is going to be $550. I'd probably get these. Depends on. It says 1080p, 60 frames per second. Yeah, I'd want to check them out. But I'm really into AR and VR. I used to have a VR headset, but I really hate wires, and so this is entirely bound off of the idea that it would be truly wireless, and be able to be connected to the PC and have full range of motion tracking. So go check it out. You can follow the link that's in the chat right here. Doink. And it'll be in the podcast show notes and on YouTube as well. So the final article here is related to Twitch. If you haven't heard some of the rumors, doink. In the continuity report, it's probably because of the source. The source is Variety. The continuity report is actually a show about movies, and watch a movie one night and then talk about it the next day on the stream. Advertising isn't a game for the people who run Twitch, but they are working to weave it more closely into esports and live stream programming beamed out by the Amazon-backed service every day. It's not Amazon-backed. It's a wholly owned subsidiary of Amazon. And their daily cash flows and revenue and whatnot is not disclosed in SEC filings. So nobody really knows how much Twitch is costing Amazon or if it's even profitable, although there's rumors. So this is an article over at Variety by Brian Steinberg. The title is Amazon's Twitch Wants to Marry Commercials with Creators. There are a lot of rumors that are floating around about what's coming to Twitch, some fundamental changes about the profit sharing and exclusivity and many other things. And what I tell clients is don't put all your eggs in one basket and have something that can maintain continuity of operation should things sour with whoever it is that's providing services. And so if you are a streamer on Twitch and you are planning for the future, plan to start streaming to other services, most notably YouTube. And if exclusivity actually drops from contracts, then you can do that anyway. You can do that in a lagged way on Twitch now, where you can stream and then, depending on your contract, you can post it later over on YouTube. But live streaming is kind of verboten depending on the exclusivity agreement. But it says here, executives spent Monday making a pitch to advertisers that involves creating closer pairings between the people who create the content on the outlet and the brands that sponsor it. Twitch backs several live streams, including one owned and operated channels like Twitch Rivals and Twitch Sports, as well as creator-led projects that can embrace advertising. And Twitch offers drops and whatnot. So depending on how big you are, you have a different contract, and it is somewhat of a fact that advertisers like live reads, authentic live reads, real interaction between the content creator and the audience. If a person watching a streamer believes that the streamer is actually enjoying the product and hypes it up, then it's more likely to be consumed by those who are watching. And I can't count how many streamers I've watched that have hyped up a particular game or a product, only to see the people that are watching respond in kind with, "Hey, I just purchased this and I love it," or the product or service or whatever it is. And so content creators that do this real marriage between the products and the viewers, the return on the investment for advertisers is spectacular. So that said, this article is, again, Amazon's Twitch wants to marry commercials with creators, and it's written by Brian Steinberg. With that, I am done for the day for this particular stream, and I'll be back tomorrow at 11 o'clock. You can find me everywhere, and at the beginning of every show, I talk about this aggregator, describing how it works, and then at the end, I just click the link again, and I show you that, ta-da, it's always aggregating new news.